All right.
And there's just so goddamn much to talk about.
I just started recording because I don't know if it's gonna. Okay, it doesn't do that weird thing anymore, so it's
that's
recording.
Good. Well, at least for now, I'll start doing that again.
Yeah.
At some point.
Hold on a sec.
Are you opening, Jesse?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm just trying to pull up Robbie's Twitter so I can. Is that cool if I use that as the bio?
Sure.
Okay.
Works for me.
Cool.
Yeah, we should try. If you want to share screen any of the, if you want me to share screen any of this stuff, just let me know. Or if you want to do it, I think you can do it too.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
I do. It's easy. You just hit share screen. It's really super not hard, but
okay.
Yeah, and then you just hit stop sharing to stop sharing when you're done. But it's always good for when we have documents to look at.
Right.
I'm learning new things. I'm doing computer things. I'm a hacker, remember?
Yeah, you're part of.
I'm anonymous.
QAnon now.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did that happen?
I'm so computer illiterate. It's not even funny. Are you struggling over there, dude?
Me?
Yeah, you.
No, I'm good. I'm just slow as molasses. I eat really slowly too.
I feel like that. Yes, you're very, slow and I'm all the fuck over the place.
No, that's not true. I think I usually think I'm too slow, and it's it annoys the fuck out of people. So
I find it endearing.
Oh, thank you.
Sometimes I won't lie. Sometimes it's a little hard because my brain's moving so fast. And I'm like, come on, Jesse, you can do it. But most of the time, it's just
yeah.
You know what
I mean? yeah. No, I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
I'm just very all the time, so it's hard for me to.
That's why we're the killer combo. It's the yin and the yang.
I told you, you're the calm to my crazy. It works.
All right, cool. So,
you made me count you in. Are you good? Are we good now?
Yeah, I got Robbie's his bio up. So whenever.
Okay. Cool. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Facts on the Ground. I'm Jesse Zerwell. I'm joined, as always, by my comrade and co-host, Misty Winston. And we're happy to welcome again to the show, Robbie Jaeger. He's been a guest twice before. And the last time we talked to him, we discussed the Colonial Pipeline that runs through North Carolina, but also a lot farther, and is causing a lot of not just environmental damage, but social upheaval, if you will, as well. So we're going to talk to him tonight, about an update on that. So, Robbie, thank you so much for joining us again. I know you've been busy with this story, and as an independent journalist and the lead political finance reporter for MCSC Network. So thanks for taking the time to update us on this.
Well, no problem, man. I mean, I've been busy, but the thing about it is you got to do the updates. You got to keep going. I think that I think the story actually has picked up some steam since the last time we spoke. And you guys have a lot to do with that, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, Of
Yeah, I
course.
mean, I've been trying as hard as I can to get it out on Twitter, but it really is kind of insane that it hasn't been getting more steam. Like, more of the kind of mainstream Green New Deal people aren't even talking about it. Have you seen any of them? Have you seen AOC, or have you seen what's his name, Bill McKibben? I got his attention on Twitter. That
Mm.
wasn't very impressive.
You yeah, you saw what he did,
Yeah,
right? That was, I mean,
really.
it was for me. It was on brand, right?
Yeah,
He,
it's pretty
but I
much what I
guess
expected.
technically, pretty much exactly. I mean, he basically
Well,
reduced it to a footnote.
that's not fair because honestly, I didn't even expect him to respond to me. So I
Well,
guess
yeah,
he
but
did
see,
exceed.
he put as much effort into his response to you as he did into writing that nice couple of sentences about the pipeline spill
Yeah.
at the very bottom of a very lengthy article that had absolutely nothing to do with anything pipeline related. He was writing about the freeze over in Texas, which I guess at the time was a very present thing to write about, but he just attached a couple of like, oh, also just what happened this week, and he dedicated like one sentence to like 4 or 5 different topics, and that the Colonial Pipeline spill was one of them, and it was like, okay. I mean, it's about what I expected, but and sadly, that's more than what we've gotten from pretty much anybody that you mentioned, right? The AOCs, the Sunrise movements that reached out to me and were asking about information, and we're gonna organize about it, and have yet to say anything or do anything about it, or at least put anything out on social media. So yeah, I feel like it's just been us talking about it,
Hmm.
but people are listening. I feel like, because I'm seeing more and more of it popping around. I actually saw a CNN reporter retweet an article that was written about it recently. And while that article, I read it's a good article. It illustrates how regulations are pathetic,
Hmm.
Yeah.
in that. But I also feel like the article relies too heavily on quotes and comments from people at the American Petroleum Institute, and stuff like that, for it to really have a whole lot of credence, as far as whenever they're saying, well, Colonial's doing things that it doesn't even technically have to. Like, to me, it's like, the argument has finally started to happen, which is good, even if it's not in like super public space yet. But the argument, at least between Colonial and the gas industry lobbyists, they're starting to point the finger back at PEMSA, the regulating body, the federal regulating body, and they're basically saying, hey, I mean, yeah, we might have problems, but these guys don't even really care if we have problems or not. They don't barely we you may think we don't check a whole lot, but that's still far more than what they require of us. And it's only a matter of time before that department comes back and says, no, no, no. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to that, but even then, something that I've discovered recently is that Colonial Pipeline has, a very senior executive sitting on the committee, on one of the rules advisory committees for PIMSA, the the Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration.
Hmm.
Um, and she also sits on she also chairs a committee for the American Petroleum Institute.
What's her
So
name?
her
I was
name is
just looking it up.
Angela Kolar. All right.
Yeah.
Uh, and she, there's it's a 15-member board. There's like 5 government appointees, 5 from agencies like fire department or fire marshals and stuff like that. And then there's like 5 representatives from oil and gas companies, right? One of them is Enterprise Products Partners. There's one from obviously Colonial Pipeline, and there's a couple of other, there's 3 others. Um, you know, so whenever you start really looking into it, I looked in PIMSA's regulation. Like, what are the federal regulations, right? What is PIMSA requiring of these pipeline companies? And then you come to find out that, you know, the way that our law is actually set up is that they want uh, regulators in multiple industries, not just oil and gas, but specifically in oil and gas for this topic of conversation. They want them to use industry standards whenever possible. Whenever we're talking about regulations, they don't want these governing bodies to actually come up with their own regulations. They'd rather you would adopt the industry standards. And
what do they mean by industry standards?
Well, it basically means that they want you to take the American Petroleum Institute's word for, hey, this is the safest way to do something, right? Because they set the so-called industry standards, right? And this happens in multiple industries, right? There's a big lobbyist union group that represents a lot of companies in a specific field, and they write the so-called handbook on how to do something. And the governing body, as far as the federal or a state governing body that's supposed to oversee that trade or that profession, basically says, well, you guys are the experts, so we're going to let you write your own rules because you guys supposedly know how to do it best.
It's basically the police policing the police. Like,
pretty much.
You know what I mean? It's just letting them, no regulations, you just go do your thing. And I mean, I'm sure we all know that that'll turn out great. You know, these people are solely driven on profit margin and they don't really care about anything else. So I'm sure they'll totally do the right thing and not, fuck everything up for money.
They're swimming in ethics.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. I mean, in a lot of professions, like, welding or something like that, I mean, that's totally a fine way to do things. And, there's only so nefarious you're going to get with the master welding conspiracy, but the oil and gas industry, on the other hand, is not the same beast. And they shouldn't be allowed to write their own rules. Or just submit their own rules. Say, hey, this is the way we wrote the book on this, and regulators are basically saying, oh, well, I mean, that saves us a lot of work. So cool, that works for us. I mean, it's a joke. I mean, quite honestly, the API, who I've been talking about, the largest oil and gas and pipeline lobbying group in existence, right? There's like hundreds of member companies to it. And think about this: out of the hundreds of members,
can you just name some of the companies for people
yeah,
who
I
are
could pull
watching?
some up and just see. I mean, pretty well. I mean, just there's hundreds. So pretty much any oil and gas company you can think of, is going to be a member in some capacity, right?
So that's like the main club for all of them.
Right. It's a. I'm trying to think of it. It's like a union / lobbyist group, right? It's like the NRA. It's like the NRA for oil companies,
right?
You know how NRA, they lobby the federal government all the time, spend lots and lots of money doing that, trying to influence policy. That is totally something that the American Petroleum Institute does, and there's other groups like them, and a lot of these companies are members of multiple of these groups. American Petroleum Institute is the largest one. And like I said, like the NRA, right? They lobby, but they also, like, they'll represent you in court, or maybe hook you up with some lawyers, help you with PR, stuff like that, right? They'll do interviews defending you if you have a 1.2 million gallon leak on a nature preserve. You just call up your buddies at the American Petroleum Institute, and they'll say glowing things about you at every available opportunity that they have. And that's what they're there for. But they're also the ones setting the standards for what regulations are being run by. And, while they may say that, I mean, here's the thing. Colonial Pipeline, like last time we discussed, Colonial Pipeline's done like $58 million in property damage. Yes, it's the largest pipeline in the country, but they're only checking like 10% of it at most for cracks in a year. They're checking at most of any of it 30% for any one kind of thing in a year. It's pathetic, quite honestly. They've already had two minor incidents already reported to PIMSA so far this year.
Well, the thing that blew me away was the fact that like 88% of this pipe is over 40 years old or something crazy. Wasn't that? It was like 88%. That's crazy.
In North Carolina, there's 700 some odd miles of pipe, and 88% of that was built prior to 1980. The pipeline as a whole was started construction in like 1968. I could be wrong about the exact date of that, but sometime in the 60s is when the pipeline was originally constructed. So there's parts of the pipe that are damn near 60 years old. So, and I was having this discussion with somebody else the other day, and it's I mean, for one thing, like to finish the little thought I had, the API, they gave Colonial Pipeline in their 2019 excellence in safety award or some such bullshit, right? The same year that I reported that they checked less than half of their line and checked an abysmal amount for cracks and other stuff. And we're also not keeping their records correctly the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it was after all that, but no, the American Petroleum Institute is like, oh yeah, you guys are award-winning safety, which makes me really, really worry about the condition of the rest of the pipelines in our country.
It's
If
like
that is what's
Barack Obama getting a peace prize.
and yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it feels like
Preemptive
that,
Nobel.
right? And so but I was having this discussion too. So yeah, obviously, DAPL, the Dakota Access Pipeline is much more famous or infamous. It gets lots more attention. It's also much shorter, right? It's about 1,700 miles as opposed to the 5,600 miles that Colonial runs. But Dakota Access, they didn't check anything for cracks in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
right? The pipeline is brand spanking new, basically, in terms of pipelines. So, you know, I'm not going to excuse it. I mean, you should be checking it even if it's damn brand new. Even if you just built it yesterday, you should be checking this stuff, right? For everything, not just one thing or the other, but for everything. So that's not a good sign. But they did check, like about half of it. They checked. I mean, it's the same rate. They're going on the same rate. They checked about half of their pipeline for for like dents or deformations, right, or corrosion. They found one anomaly in that same period of time.
Was
Colonial
that the whole
Pipeline,
pipeline?
for the whole pipeline, they found one anomaly.
No,
That's
I'm
all.
saying was the whole pipeline the anomaly?
Oh, yeah. It was probably the one that went right over. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, I'm gonna try to. Yeah, I don't know. It was probably that one part that went over. The Native American sacred land.
Yeah.
Also pretty much all of it. Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
but Colonial Pipeline checked. About 45%. Right? They checked 650 miles for cracks and about 900 miles for corrosion and dents. They found 305 anomalies in that time period, and they had to make over like 180 repairs. So if Dakota Access, this is why this conversation becomes important now. It's like, why do we have to do something about Colonial specifically right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because they need to be made an example out of, quite frankly. And it's, hey, look, technically Democrats have power, and they like to say that they care about this sort of thing.
Oh,
So
but they don't.
supposedly. So if this is going to happen, it can happen right now. This is some kind of change we can do right now. And that is basically rewrite the entire way of how we regulate pipelines and the standards that we expect of them. We can kick the lobbyists out of the room and say, you're not going to write your own rules anymore, right? We can make sure, basically clamp down on standards and make sure that companies like Colonial, or make sure DAPL doesn't turn into Colonial, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the point. If you don't make an example out of Colonial and show the newer pipelines that have already been built that can't be stopped at this point, you need to show them right now. Look at what you're going to, this is what they're going to become in 30 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a Colonial on the East Coast spilling oil everywhere, and then you're going to have an aging Dakota Access on the West spilling oil everywhere, right? Because those standards led to a rickety ass pipe, and there's going to be gasoline and oil covering everywhere because there are no regulation standards for inspections, and nobody cares. So yeah, we need to tell companies like Energy Transfer that own DAPL, what you see happening over at Colonial is not going to be tolerated anymore.
Right.
If you start running a pipeline that even anywhere closely resembles Colonial, we'll go ahead and shut you down right now, or
Mm-hmm.
we'll force you to sell, or we'll do something. And this is something we were kind of talking about real quickly, last time was that how like disheartening it is that you wish you could just shut the pipeline down. Like, no, you're done doing business here. But we can't do that. And they know that. And that's kind of a disheartening thing, because it's like, I mean, what do you do if that situation? There's only so much you can punish them. They're looking at you like, oh, what you gonna do? Shut us down? And you have to kind
Yeah,
of
that's
sit
what
there
I
and just
worry
say
about though.
no.
Yeah, they're so powerful though. Like they have full control over Congress. They have lobbyists writing, like you said, like our actual lawmakers don't write the laws. Lobbyists do. And then they donate to certain politicians to sign certain bills or approve of certain bills or co-sponsor certain bills, and that's really who controls things. And so it feels like I don't even know how we stop them from doing that in this system. Like it's so fucking corrupt, and the fact that they're able to get away with it is just really proof of that. It sucks.
Are there, Robbie, are there any specific political players who seem to have a vested interest in this pipeline?
Well, I mean, there's North Carolina Senator Tom. Well, okay, it's not to say he specifically has a vested interest, right? But the Coke Industries owns. They're the largest shareholder in Colonial Pipeline.
Hmm.
So, you know, they spent a hell of a lot of money trying to get Tom Tillis elected. And, it worked. I'm not saying it was all on them, but they did spend a lot of money on him.
And
And,
just to clarify, Tom Tillis is
he's a Republican senator from North Carolina.
okay.
Um, and he ran a very, very close campaign against his challenger, a Democratic challenger named Cal Cunningham, who, I mean, honestly, had his campaign sunk by an adultery scandal just like a month before the election in classic North Carolina politician style. Just straight up got busted for cheating right before the election, and boom, like that's it.
Yeah.
But look, we all know how the cokes work, right? They throw their money around. That's nothing really new. And Colonial themselves are not a publicly traded company, so you can't just get onto the New York Stock Exchange and buy a few shares of Colonial.
Mhm.
Um, you could buy you could probably buy some shares of like Shell, right? That's probably about the closest company you're going to be able to invest in. I don't know if Coke Industries is public either. I think that the only
I don't
owners of
think
Dakota
so.
Access. I think the only Colonial Pipeline owners that are public is Shell, and that's about as close as if a politician had a whole shit ton of Shell stock, which is possible. I'd have to do some research on that. Quite honestly, I haven't
Mhm.
actually dug through that. Uh, and then you'd have to kind of look and see how they voted. But they're probably going to be a Republican, and them voting in favor of oil and gas pipeline rights isn't going to surprise you, regardless of what their investments are either way. Um, so I don't think there's a whole lot of, at least on the surface, it doesn't seem to be a lot of political money flowing from Colonial or any kind of conflict of interest type stuff. I mean, sure, the Coke Industries really spending a lot of money because you remember they wouldn't donate to Trump.
Where?
You know what I'm saying? So they had to they had to keep going through just going senators and congressmen and stuff.
Right.
They didn't want to spend a lot of money on Trump, but they
Mhm.
did. Like I said, they threw their money around at a record pace. They spent a hell of a lot more money than they ever have. And while Tom Tillis was one of them, one of the senators, and probably the one that got the most money from the Kochs, or one of the ones, especially, well, other than the ones in Georgia, you know, you have to think, why would you spend so much money on this particular senator? I mean, was he that at risk? I mean, yes, he was. He was at risk. Um, but you also have a lot of distribution centers and facilities, especially down there in Charlotte. Uh, there's a lot of different reasons. There's the macro reasons, like, okay, if you want to keep the Senate map, you have to keep North Carolina red.
Mhm.
Um, and if you're also going to, on a micro level, keep your business smoothly flowing through that state, that you need to keep North Carolina
Well, I
red,
mean,
right?
listen, all of that stuff is so incestuous. I mean, even there, if there isn't like direct connections or like direct, like corrupt financial ties, it's all like circling around each other. You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah, it's all very shady. All of it is.
Yeah. I mean, but with Colonial, they're not out of the woods quite yet. So a couple days ago, I think it was the 25th, uh, we finally got an update as far as the situation goes right now. Well, we kind of got a couple of different updates. The first update was uh, February 20th, I want to say. Colonial Pipeline released their year-end financials, where they said that, hey, we made nearly $1.4 billion for the year
Hmm.
2020. And while as a total number, that's down 3% from the year before, they also said that we made 480 million in net profit, which is actually 3% higher than the year before. So it's funny how that works out.
Yeah.
But in that financial report, they also said that as of the date of the report, which I think it was the date the report itself was dated February 15th. So as of February 15th, they said that cleanup efforts and remediation efforts are still ongoing. They still have no idea how much it's going to cost, grand total of what the cleanup was going to cost, and they still have no idea whether or not they'll have to revise their estimates again going forward, and they still don't know if they're going to be hit with any fines from any kind of
Which
regulation. So
is
they still,
amazing.
yeah, they don't know anything. They just say, no, we don't really know. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. But then
They know. Well,
they've got an idea.
my theory is that they know, and they're
It's
just
bad.
they're just obfuscating as much as they can, as much as they can get away with.
Of
Uh,
course, of
yeah.
course. But see, and while the government agencies, the EPA has obviously turned their back on this whole situation, they don't care. We covered that last time,
Right.
right? Where they basically said, "Hey, the drinking water's fine. So what do you want us to do about it?"
Yeah.
That's why that agency is a fucking sham, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because how do you protect something if you only show up after it's already been destroyed? But whatever. Um, so and PIMSA, the pipeline specific body, they've been rather quiet. I've been checking in with them, and they have not released any updates since December 15th of 2020 was the last update that PIMSA has given.
Mm.
Was the last time
Right.
they filed anything that had to do anything related to the spill. So we don't know what's going on with that. I'm assuming that they still have an ongoing investigation and that something will pop up soon and they'll make zero announcement on it. And it'll just happen and whatever. But the
Yeah.
North Carolina Environmental Quality Department is not having Colonial shit, which I find amusing. Because we also say, hey, like I just said, Colonial Pipeline makes $1.4 billion a year. Uh, the annual budget for the NCDEQ was 80 million a year. All right, and these guys are like, you know what? No, dude, we're not gonna have your bullshit. So, funny
That's
thing
what we
is that
need. More
yeah,
of that. More
a
of
couple
that,
of days
please.
ago,
Yeah.
they released their assessment of Colonial's gigantic, like 1,600 page site report that was
Yeah.
detailed all of their cleanup efforts, all of the toxicology stuff. Um, and so the state regulators here in North Carolina came out with their report and basically said, you gave us 1,600 pages and you still left out these 22 things. And if you don't give us these 22 things by April 26th, we're just going to keep tacking on.
Yeah. Here's
We're going to keep marking tallies on our shit list on how many different things we're going to fucking find you for. If I had to read anything into it, it took DEQ a month to read this damn thing. It's 1,600 pages. It's
Oh,
got
a
photos and
long ass
just
document. Yeah.
yeah, dude. It was most of
but
it is
dude,
like,
Congress will vote on a $5,000 bill in 2 hours. Took them a month
right,
to read.
yeah, for
You
Yeah.
sure.
know.
No,
And
nobody read that 5,000 page
No,
bill.
they
and
still haven't. To this
No,
day, nobody.
no.
no, and the thing is that the guys at DEQ, they actually combed through. They said,
Mm-hmm.
no, you left out this little segment of the report. You left
Mm.
out this segment of the report. Section C, Article A of this says that you have to have this one clearly defined in your report. And
Yeah.
and they combed through it, and they straight sent them the troll job letter of the year a couple of days ago on the 25th, and basically said, hey guys, uh, I want you to basically redo your homework and get it back to me by April 26th, or we're just going to fine your ass even more than we were already going to. And that's what I was going to say, is that while, all of the deficiencies, as the DEQ called, as they called it, as far as Colonial's report in the latest news, this update for the story, is that yes, Colonial bullshit is just getting pushed around by the state regulators right now, which I love. Or at least they're trying to show some teeth right now, which I also
Mhm.
love, because
Yeah.
nobody else is going to. But also, if it's something that's coming down the line, I would have to say that I foresee at least the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality finding they're eyeing a fine on Colonial for this.
I hope so.
I'm I don't know how much I don't know how much uh authority or power the DEQ has as far as levying fines, or what the maximum fine they're allowed to levy is. Uh but with just how they're talking to Colonial and kind of just saying, hey, no, we're not gonna, this isn't acceptable, redo your homework, or we're gonna make things worse. It already makes it sound like things are already bad enough for you guys. Don't let us make it worse, which makes me feel like a DEQ, if I had to speculate, is going to eventually levy a fine or some kind of punishment uh, against Colonial, and then it'll be on, does PEMSA step up uh,
Mhm.
eventually and levy a fine down on Colonial, which we won't know until that happens, because but that's Pete Buttigieg's department now, guys.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
Yeah.
yeah.
PIMSA is
CIA
under
Pete.
Yeah, PIMSA is under the actually you would think it would be under the Energy Department of Energy, but it's actually under the Department of Transportation. So Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg now is in charge of PIMSA, and this is who it's all. He wants to redo and revamp infrastructure. This is part of it. Uh, so
That's not what he meant, though.
no, that's not what he meant. No,
That
we
that
all know what he meant.
Oh,
He
we're
meant
so
we're gonna.
screwed, you guys. We're
what
so
is
screwed.
what
Oof.
Yeah.
what expertise whatsoever does Pete Buttigieg have in infrastructure?
What was the
Besides
thing that they were trying to
besides
say?
like besides like entering and exiting the green zone in
No,
Iraq.
there was one thing where they like did an interview and he's like, "Yeah, well, always really been into transportation." Did he really just say that out loud? Oh, what a dork. He's not really qualified to be there. He's just like the person, the little placeholder for that position because he does as he's told.
I've
And
always been into
yeah,
bodily mobility.
He's a
What the
yeah.
hell are you talking about?
I mean, look, he was the one that scared me the most after Biden, as far as primary challengers. That really, I was like, if this person becomes president, um, and I feel like I jinxed it, guys, because I don't want to get too deep into this because, be quite honest with you, I haven't read up all the nuance about what just happened in Syria, but look, whenever the primaries were going on, I said this to Nico like at least half a dozen times. Joe Biden and Buttigieg both sound like they can't wait to get into a war.
Mhm.
Um, and they, especially the way they talk about Assad and the way they talk about Syria, makes me feel like that's going to be their first target. Um,
Yeah.
and we could go on all day. Like I said, there was, I don't want to get too much into the nuance of what happened in Syria,
Well,
but just the fact,
you're
Well,
not the
we
first
just
comrade of
talked to
ours
Vanessa
who's
Beeley.
yeah,
right?
Well,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
go
just
ahead.
talked to Vanessa Beeley, and the target really wasn't Syria necessarily. It was Iran.
Right. The
It just
target was
happens to,
Iran,
yeah.
but
But
I would say
I
this.
would say
I would
Iran
say
in
that
quotes.
Biden is basically showing that he's not afraid to violate Syria's sovereignty whenever he sees fit. So to me, is that while that might be a little skirmish, basically the target was Iran. In
Yeah, that's
reality, it's
just
also Joe Biden basically saying to Bashar Assad, "Hey, anytime I want, I'm not afraid to run some bombs right over Damascus if I want to."
Mhm.
Um, and which I really do. I hope I hope does not happen. But Biden worries me with that. I mean, quite honestly, I mean because, like I said, his rhetoric during the primaries, uh, especially when at the debates, uh, it just was screaming to me like he can't wait to be in charge of the military so he
his
can go.
Yeah.
entire
Yeah,
50-year career is like a commercial for the military-industrial complex.
absolutely. I mean, well, he
There
proved it with his cabinet.
was no secret who he was. It was no secret who he was.
And it's
So,
just, and regardless of what was going on then, I mean, just seeing the people out here right now, that was pushing people to vote for him, now are like, I didn't vote for this. Yes,
yes,
you
you
did, and
did.
you told
Yeah.
Stop it.
and you told
Oh,
hundreds of thousands of others to do the same.
just
And
own it.
now
Just own
own
it.
it. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Just own
Yeah.
it. Say, I was scared of Trump, and so I voted for a corrupt corporate owned war criminal and a
Yeah.
racist and a rapist. Just say it. Just own it. I let my fear of Trump, manipulate my emotions, and I voted for, essentially his equal. And in some ways, he's worse.
I
Just own that
yeah.
shit. I get it, but just own it. I'm so tired of people acting shocked that this is who Joe Biden is.
Yeah, and
Everybody knows who Joe Biden is.
it's not
He doesn't
it's
hide
not
it.
it's not like these I mean they're not even claims against him, they're truths that stain his hideous corpus. It's not like they got more severe once he was elected president. Like they've always been the same. They've been the same in the months before he was elected. Like he's been this guy, like this
yeah.
fucking piece of shit, war criminal. And like now people, like Misty said, I understand, people get desperate and they vote out of desperation, and I'm not going to uh try to pillory anybody for that, but
I
you
will
know,
ask you to please try to wake the fuck up from that like fantasy land.
And
Please stop that.
but
Ugh.
yeah.
we got the wake up. We should have had the wake up now, right? With the $2,000
I,
check thing.
Oh
I
I
mean,
yeah.
wish, dude.
that's a
I
simple
don't
wake
think
up
so.
call for everyone. That's a simple. He literally said, literally, that they'll go out the door immediately. Fucking, they're making memes. The Warnock campaign is, with a giant $2,000 check with his name on it or with his face on it. Like basically, if you elect me, this is what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a $2,000 check, and yeah, I could be sitting here sounding like a big baby to some neoliberal fuck that doesn't really care or understand what I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
the fact of the matter is that promises are promises, right? Uh, George H.W. Bush was a one-term president, and the reason why had nothing to do with the Gulf War. It had everything to do with his "read my lips," uh,
Mm.
the no new taxes. And
Yeah.
then what did he have to do 2 years in? He had to raise taxes
Mhm.
because that's just the way things go when you're in charge. If there's like something you should never ever promise your constituents, is that you won't
Well,
raise
here's the thing.
taxes.
Let's just point out the fact though that even that we have to beg for $2,000
Right.
almost a year into a pandemic where the economy has been like crushed. The fact that we have to beg for that is beyond comprehension to me. The fact that that hasn't gotten people in the streets infuriated by how unjust and fucked up that is. I mean, do you guys realize other countries are getting, $2,000 a month, or, getting 80% of their salary paid to them. And, they're, all of those things are happening in other countries. And then in this country, we're begging for crumbs. And then
Mhm.
they're like taking some of those crumbs away from us, before they even give them to us. And then they're like, oh, and you may get those in a few months. And we just
Well,
take it. We just
And
take it. Like,
it's 1,400 now, isn't it?
well, and
But
here's the
see, it's
thing I want to mention
1,400 plus
about
the
the
600.
no, but
Yeah.
here's the thing. No, here's the thing because they did the $2,000 checks will go out immediately. They did that after the Trump 600 already went out.
Right.
So they can't
Mhm.
now add that in because they said
Oh.
2,000
Oh, but
after that
Misty,
was already
but
done.
but
Yeah.
House Democrats passed that. Don't you
Mhm.
understand? House Democrats gave you that
I
600, not Trump.
understand that
Uh,
2,000 is not 1,400. That's what I understand.
exactly. And
So,
and even Bernie was wagging his fucking finger at us
oh,
and saying, "We will give you the 2,000. That's 1,400 plus the 600 that we are." It's like, okay, man. Like,
oh, what
okay,
an
dude.
unbelievable cuckmaster. Like
I'm
he's
And
just
look,
gonna
so
I'm just gonna
disgusting.
come out and say it because I'm so sick of hearing or not hearing but reading this garbage on Twitter. Fuck Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a fucking fraud, and if you're still stuck on him, that's sad, and you need to really get over that because your mental
oh,
health is going to suffer. So
bring on the
that's that.
flame. Here comes the
I
flame.
just don't
God, if
even
anybody
know
ever
how
gets that
anybody can
clip.
still take him seriously. Yeah, you can distance yourself from that, Robbie, if you want, because I
No,
understand
I
that the
don't
Bernie stands
care.
are okay. No,
No, look,
see, I can say it because I think most of them have me blocked already on Twitter, so it won't matter. I'm pretty sure all the
they
Bernie diehards
I'm just
blocked
speaking
me.
for myself.
they've got me blocked now after
Yeah.
what I did to Jeff the other day. Which was
Jeff.
actually
Oh,
quite
Oh
Jeff
yeah.
Miami. Yeah, yeah. Oh,
that
don't,
was
let's not even
hilarious.
talk about him. Please don't give
Wait,
him any
I
airtime. He
I'm
does not deserve
sorry.
it.
wait, can we
It's all right.
I didn't
It's
say
all
his
right.
last name. I'm not gonna say his
can we
name.
just
No,
can we just hit upon that briefly because
no, I don't
I
want to talk about him.
okay. I just want to know
I
what
just don't.
happened.
He doesn't. No, he just doesn't deserve the like the attention. That's part of his problem.
He blocked
I just
me
really don't want to give him.
after I suggested that he's a paid agent
Yeah.
provocateur. So
He blocks everybody and then he talks trash behind blocks. But seriously,
No,
he's
he's
not
a
worth
yeah.
talking
I don't
about.
want to talk about cyber stalkers.
No,
Anyway,
we have
so
more important things to talk about.
exactly.
fuck,
But
fuck
so as
Jeff.
far as like but as far as like but you're right though. I mean Bernie, look, he cucked hard, right? And everybody sees it. But the general theme that I think that we can all wrap what that our brief discussion about what that was the other day about. Well, the reason it all came about, and it happens time and time again with multiple people, and it's basically just the fact that they can't get off of the Bernie Sanders uh, teat that got them popular in the first place.
Yes,
Um,
and they're willing
they're
to make so many excuses.
absolutely for not only for themselves. It's moved on from Bernie now. So I'm not sure if you've noticed. It's the grift at first was defend Bernie by any means. Now the grift is uh, defend the squad by any means,
Hmm.
right? Um, and generally, because now, I mean, you just basically have people that are, how Trump had his reply guys. Like people got famous off just being Trump reply guys. Now they're just like the opposite. Instead of there being like a bunch of like the first person in AOC's mentions is not a critic. It's somebody like just waiting on somebody to pop off. Like I'm about to,
Yeah.
like I'm about to defend my queen right now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but getting AOC or any of the squad to talk about anything
She's
that
another she's another
it,
fraud.
but getting
Oh,
him to talk about anything that isn't directly related to what's in a news cycle at that moment is damn near fucking impossible. And nobody, except for us over at MCSC, you guys, Steve, right? We were the only ones telling everybody months ago that Bernie was fucking up, right?
years.
And that AOC was fucking up, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and that they were not going to ever challenge Nancy Pelosi in any meaningful way, or at least AOC didn't and hasn't, still hasn't, it won't, right?
Right.
No.
So, but yet constantly, but we're the ones that get our credibility attacked, right?
Hmm.
Which I find funny, because it turns out we were right about all that. And
Yeah.
not only
Yeah.
were we right about all that, but we were telling everybody this at a time where
It was not
nobody
popular.
You would lose your entire audience. A lot of people would. Could you imagine if, Kyle Kalinske, who, I don't, his show has
Oh,
basically become MSM commentary at this point, right?
yes.
Like, hey,
Yeah.
let's play it. Let's play a clip and talk about it. Let's play another clip, talk
Yeah.
about it. But
It's sad.
he used to do a little bit more discussion, right, on his show a couple of years back. And could you imagine a couple of years back him coming out like in 2018 and actually criticizing Bernie like substantially on the air? There's no way he would have lost half of his platform.
Right.
Hmm. And
Because
that's why he didn't do it.
and that's exactly right.
That's why
And
they
that's
don't do
exactly
it.
why they won't do it still to this day, even though he's come out and bitten the bullet for Biden on the checks. He spent the entire primary basically saying, "Hey, that's my good friend. We're not. He's a good guy. He was basically priming his base for the inevitability that Biden was gonna be the guy and that they were gonna have to vote for the guy.
Yeah.
And it worked. That's the thing, is that it works. Is that because the complex is real when it comes to Bernie. It's not necessarily him becoming a messiah, like him thinking he's the messiah. It's more of his followers thinking he's the messiah. That's where the complex is. And he said whatever he says goes, pretty much. It was very Trumpian. And they hate it when I say that or when anybody says
No,
that.
honestly,
But
I
it
think, okay,
is.
so here's the thing. They've turned into, and oh my God, this is going to get me
Let's get
people
it.
who hate me probably won't watch this, but they act like
Exactly.
hillbots.
For sure.
Like for sure. Like it's not even like a Trump supporter. It is like carbon copy, mirror image hillbot. Like that's and it's over the past 4 years, because I started criticizing Bernie extremely early on, after 2016. And over the past 4 years, I think that 4 or 5 years, I guess now, watching Bernie supporters turn into the thing that they always claim to hate and the thing that they mocked in 2016 was really depressing, because that happened to a lot of them, and it was really depressing. And a lot of these people I still like they're still nice people, and they have, but they're just, it's a cult of personality, and it's, you can't, you just can't criticize Bernie. They think it's, I don't know what that is, but it has been really depressing to watch.
Yeah,
I would say.
and part of the problem with that is, I think, significant, is that you have these people, I would say they're poser independent journalists, and I'm going to name one name, like Walker Bragman, still holding on to this, completely destroyed and gone hope that Bernie Sanders is going to do anything progressively beneficial for us. But the problem is they have a platform and they can keep putting that message out there. And it's not that I'm saying they should be deplatformed or that they should stop saying what they're saying. I'm just saying we should recognize them for what they are. And these are sort of, the functionaries that keep the myth going, that like Bernie Sanders is done. Like, that dude is like roasted toast. Like, there's nothing ever coming from him ever again. Like,
yeah, nobody's gonna believe him. And you know what? By the way, from the way that Walker Bragman asks for money, you would think he's about to be fucking deplatformed. I mean, with the way that him and everybody from Daily Poster. I mean, let's just be for real. They ask for money, like, hey, here's a tweet. Oh yeah, if you like my tweet, you should consider donating to the Daily Poster. Right? This is. It's like it doesn't matter if it's a story or a shit post. If you enjoyed this shit post, make sure you could go over and donate to the Daily Poster. And it's like, dude, okay, for one thing, Bragman is already kind of established, right, in freelance circles. And dude, Sirota is your boss, man. Which makes me and Sirota does the same thing. Fucking
David Sirota has me blocked because I asked him to speak for Julian Assange. So there's that.
I mean, look, it's like Sirota, dude. You're one of the biggest surrogates Bernie Sanders ever had.
You're famous. Dumb.
You're famous
He's a
because
journalist, and he got mad and blocked me because I
He's not,
continually asked him to speak up for Julian Assange.
he's not a journalist. He's a speechwriter.
Okay, he's a journalist.
he
Yeah.
calls
Okay,
himself a journalist, right?
he
And you know what?
self-identifies as a journalist, so I'm going to hold him to that like standard that I would for everybody else. And if you're a journalist and you won't even tweet about Julian Assange, mention again, because people like to pretend that when I say people should speak on Julian Assange, that means that I'm asking those people to drop literally everything else in their life and only talk about Julian Assange.
Right.
And I've never said that. But if you
No.
can't even like tweet about the like most significant press freedom case in history, and you claim to be a journalist, you're immediately suspect to me. I have
Not
no respect for you.
He's got to
not that it
curate. He's got to
seriously
curate himself.
matters, but was he working for the campaign at the time?
No.
Did you
This
know?
was after the campaign was over. I mean, I've been asking him for some time
Right.
to comment on it, but even after I got blocked after the campaign was over, and he was whatever it was he started. There was something else, some other like thing he was trying to start like right when the campaign ended. I forget what it's called now. But it didn't last
GoFundMe
long.
page.
Huh?
GoFundMe page.
No, it was like some other, I think he was trying to do some other kind of like independent media like outlet of some kind. But I don't remember what it was called.
Okay.
But it was during that time when he was just doing that right after the campaign
Yeah.
that I got blocked. And it was, I mean, I don't know for sure that it was specifically because I was annoying him and asking him to speak about Julian Assange, but that's the only time I ever interacted with him.
Yeah, but
Was,
see, that's the
you know,
thing is, you were giving. I don't know. I don't understand that. I mean, that if it was if Assange was such a hot topic that he couldn't be bothered to say anything about, like, yeah, you're right, that's suspect, right? And if you're gonna block somebody just for asking a so-called progressive journalist to make a fucking statement about one of the most important, if not the most important, press freedom trial, or not just trial but case in general, issue in the history of the fucking of the entire planet, it shouldn't be that difficult. And the reason I asked if he was on the campaign, it was because it was the same thing with Bernie. But Bernie can't block you on Twitter. But if he could have blocked people,
his
if
wife
Bernie
did.
Sanders could have blocked anybody on Twitter, it would have been the Assange people, right? It
Yeah.
would have been the people constantly asking him to make a statement on
His wife
Assange.
did block me. His wife did block me because
if
I
so-
couldn't get a response from him, so I started tweeting at her, "Hey, will you ask your husband to speak up for Julian Assange?" And I got blocked.
Mhm.
Which oddly enough, his son was following me, which is really kind of weird. And he started following me. Like I'm a long time Bernie Sanders critic, like hardcore.
He
I'm no
started
fan.
following both of us at the around the same time, and I was like,
yeah,
"How does this guy even know who I am?"
Yeah, I just found it very strange that he started following me. Let me see if he still follows me. I'm just curious now. He does still follow me. It's fucking
What's his
weird.
first name again?
Levi or Levi.
Okay. Levy.
But see,
Yeah.
Levi.
you know, but
Yeah.
you asking Jane Sanders or you asking Sirota, like I said, who's supposed to be a fucking progressive journalist, right? He was more of a surrogate, if anything. I mean, but okay, look, I'm not gonna go there. Right?
He's done some good stuff. Like, let's give him a little bit of credit. He has,
okay.
yeah.
He's okay. Look, yeah, I'm gonna give him some credit on some of his journal. So he has broken a couple of nice stories. I mean, I'm not gonna hate on him for that because he has. But he's also kind of what he's done with the Daily Poster has turned them into like a print version of the Young Turks, complete with the constant fundraising bullshit.
Mhm.
And
well, listen, dude, he has kids.
Also,
he has a wife. Like, he has a career to protect. He doesn't want to cross any lines. Like, that's how it works. That's why we don't have any like real journalism in this country, because even if you're, I mean, other than like us like trying to do it, because there's no financial incentive to be like an actual journalist, because then you know, you won't get access to the people you need to interview, and he won't be able to be on Bernie Sanders' campaign, and he won't be able to, you know what I mean? Like, so and I don't know if it's intentional for him. I'm sure across the board it's different for each of these people that we're complaining about. You know, I'm sure Kyle Kalinske is different than David Sirota, and he has his different reasons than Tim Black, and he has his different reasons from whoever.
yeah,
I mean, I don't think we should pull any punches here. I think they're all lazy, and I think that they appreciate their privilege, and they're not going to change. And the fact is that if that's their standard, if that's their foundation, and that they're not willing to step outside those parameters, then they shouldn't be journalists. They shouldn't be calling themselves journalists. You know, they can call themselves entertainers, but I've just lost all patience with these people, and I don't care if they've broken good stories, once or twice in their careers. Like right now, what they're doing and what they have been doing is harmful, and they should be called out for that.
Yeah, and absolutely. And besides, Sorota's employees, including Walter Bragman, take pot shots at me and my colleagues at every fucking chance they get.
Yes,
Hmm.
it's so
So fuck
ridiculous.
them. So fuck them. Really,
Yeah,
honestly, and because who are you? I mean, it took fucking 4 of you to write a fucking article about a super PAC that everybody's known about for 4 goddamn years at the very least, and you're trying to make it seem like it's breaking news that corporations donated to the Republican Senate leadership fund. Are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like,
It's just really
and then you want us
juvenile.
to pay for that? You want us to pay for that? You
Yeah.
think that
yeah,
deserves a donation? I did that by myself, sitting on my fucking toilet. Like, I don't like, and then and I'm but that's just it. Like, yeah, you might have everybody. The broken clock is right twice a day, right? So when
yeah,
Sirota comes out with this really great breaking story, that goes, oh well, we find out some financial ties about Biden's Secretary of State pick Anthony Blinken, and about his venture capital firm Pine Island, and all this type of stuff. And I was like, all right, that's really interesting, right? We'll see, because it was not just that, but the links to an advisory firm, and so many employees from this advisory firm were getting scooped up by Biden for picks in his cabinet. But you know what? The thing about that is Sirota, yeah, I mean, it was a great find and it was a great story, but guess what, Sirota? If you wouldn't have found it, I would have, like, literally the very next day. And if I wouldn't have,
yeah.
probably somebody from the New York Times, like Ken Vogel, would have found it either
The
that day
Gray
or the day
Zone
after.
covered it.
Gray Zone Wild would have found it, all right, because you're
They
not
did.
the only,
They did actually cover it.
you
Um,
know.
the
And but yeah, I mean, it
yeah.
was a big story. Lots of people covered it because of, I think I think he ended up having to split credit with the New York Times on breaking
Hmm.
that story. But the point is that, wow, that was a good find and a good break. And as a journalist, like, okay, that's always cool. Like, on a personal level, like when you have that information nobody else has and you're about to break it, that's a pretty cool feeling. But good
Right.
for you. But the fact of the matter is that I would have found it the next day.
Yeah. It's
You
not
know what
like
I
it
mean?
was like this super hard journalistic,
Because
endeavor. It
anybody
was,
doing their fucking job at
yeah.
this point isn't arguing about forced to vote. They're fucking digging into the people that are taking up all the positions in Biden's cabinet, what their financial ties are, where they come from, what they've been doing with their life for the last 10, 20 years, what their
Yeah.
connections are, and what their motivations are going to be going into office. And that was one thing. Like, I kept my mouth shut during the forced to vote thing, when all of this really, like, progressive slash independent faux aggressive media, like, I guess, fight, so it's really started ramping up, right? Jimmy Dore thinks a fucking lot, bro. I'm just kidding.
Mm.
But I mean, regardless, but I mean, look, it sparked a massive conversation, and I'm not saying the
Right.
conversation wasn't worth having. I will say this is that it took up a lot of air in the room
Yes.
for a
Hmm.
really long time. And while everybody was screaming and shouting at each other about it, Biden was putting Raytheon in his cabinet. Biden was putting Blinken in his cabinet. Biden was, putting a lot of people with a lot of shady investments. He rewarded the chair of American Bridge, who spent like $60 million to get his ass elected, with a spot in the Department of Energy. Oh yeah, and she just happens to own $5 million in stock in an electric bus company that's about to go public in a couple of months. But
Hmm.
that didn't really get a hell of a lot of run.
Right.
You know what else
And
didn't get a lot of run? The fact that Julian Assange was denied bail, despite the fact that extradition was denied.
Yeah, and nobody was talking about
Nobody
that.
talked about it.
Nobody was talking because we had because we had to fight about forced to vote.
Which
And
again, I'm not saying that's not a fight that we
of
absolutely need to
course,
have that fight, but that took all of the oxygen out of the room on
I
every
think
other issue. I couldn't get any
yeah,
traction on Assange stuff,
no,
and that's when we really needed it the most, and that
and
sucks. Like, just on a
and that's
personal
tough.
level, I'm bitching about
I mean,
it.
no, that's fine. I mean, but look, I mean, I'm at this point, I'm just kind of like, just basically just cutting the shit, man. we have to understand, like, yes, those conversations were worth it. Jimmy Dore, I commend him for making that an issue. Because getting anything to be discussed like that unilaterally across, and it did us a favor. It exposed a lot of people, at least maybe not for me because I knew who they were,
Right.
right?
Right.
But thankfully now so many people can see Cenk Uygur for what he actually is, which is
Hallelujah.
a narcissistic, egomaniacal, petty bullshit artist.
How dare
Um,
you?
and like, I wrote the article on him in the Young Turks back in 2019, and yeah, it blew up. But I got a lot of hate for it. Like, oh well, just because they take money doesn't mean that they're gonna move towards the right or move towards the center. Um, okay, sure.
They
Just
are
wait.
this.
Just
They are
watch.
the
They
center.
are the center, right?
Like
And
I,
and he proves it
I don't know
every
what
time he
I don't know
sends
what
tweets.
Chank translates to, but I think it's the
It
center.
translates to carries water for Nira Tandon, right?
Yes.
And sit
Oh,
here and blaming and saying, oh, this is what happens when you criticize powerful elitist senators, right? And this is how they protect their privilege. You'll never get a job in DC if you criticize the powerful elitist senators. Now, say what you want about my personal or your personal feelings on Bernie Sanders. The fact of the matter is, Cenk Uygur spent his entire career milking Bernie Sanders
Mhm.
to gain followers, and now you're gonna get. I don't know about, yeah. She criticized Republicans, but that's not what she's in hot water for, Jank, right? And you can sit here, even if we're being like so dumb surface level on the Nira Tandon issue as to imagine that it was simply about mean tweets and not her fiscal philosophy as manager as
and the fact that she's
OMB,
a
right?
fucking
Her
warmonger.
policy, but that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, she's about to be in charge of the budget, and the last public advice we have from her on how to deal with a deficit is to go steal some fucking oil from another sovereign country. So
Right.
that should be the biggest. It's not her mean tweets, but if we're
No.
gonna discuss her mean tweets and her mean criticisms, every Democrat or every person that has been confirmed thus far has said mean things about Republicans in the past. That's not what it's about. That's never been what it's about. Nobody gives a shit about her criticism of Trump. Nobody
Right.
ever did.
But it was
It was the
made
fact
to
that
be
she
about that
sandbagged.
because they didn't want anybody talking about the fact that she's a corrupt corporate owned warmonger.
And
That's why
when
Yeah.
everybody focused on mean tweets.
And when Cenk Uygur comes out and says, "Oh well, you criticized the, she's in trouble because she criticized powerful elitist senators." So
Yeah.
what you're really now what you're
Fuck out
saying
of
is
here.
that, but what you're saying now, Cenk, is basically what you're admitting now is that Bernie is one of those powerful elitist politicians,
Hmm.
Fuck yeah, he
because
is.
whenever
Yeah.
you think of Neera Tanden criticizing a politician, do you really think about Donald Trump? Do you really think about Mitch McConnell or Lindsey Graham? No. When you think of
No.
Neera Tanden ethering a politician, she always saved her best shit for Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard.
Hmm.
Right? That's when she took her glove. She was as nasty as she could have ever been. Like, as she hit as far below the belt as she could have ever have with those two politicians. She didn't say anything groundbreaking about Donald Trump or any of the Republican Party. She was just towing those same ad hominem party line insults that they all threw at him, right? But she was the by far the loudest outspoken critic uh, of Bernie Sanders on that in that circle, in that neoliberal DC think tank power circle,
Hmm.
uh, and that's what everybody's talking about. It's not, for Cenk to come out and just sit here and just gloss that over. It's like, okay, so you're either saying that her insults of Bernie Sanders weren't so bad, so you're not talking about him when you say that, or that Bernie Sanders, or you're calling Bernie Sanders an elitist, uh, person in power that's trying to protect his privilege, which either you believe that or you don't. Either way, you've exposed yourself as a fucking hypocrite that will say anything for
Mm-hmm.
attention.
Hmm.
And I'm just hoping now that since Forced to Vote, when he came out and said, you know what, I know I've said I'm in support of Medicare for all for my entire career, but No, I think I'm in more support of making excuses, and that's what he did. He made excuses, excuses,
Yeah.
excuses, and now he continues to do so. And now he's making excuses for near a fucking tandem. And I
It's
just
so
hope
funny.
that I
Oh
just hope
God.
that
He even
everybody can
had the
see it.
Project Lincoln guy on too, didn't he? Had the
Oh
Project
my
Lincoln guy on. But
God!
I honestly think that Russiagate was really like the start of the fall. I think that's when a lot of people were like, "Oh, okay, wait a minute. He's not who I thought he was."
Well,
Um,
that's
you
when
know,
that's when the brain rot descended, and you see how far
well, that's
his
also around the
his
same
mental
time that he took the
capacity
Captain Crash.
has fallen at this point. I mean, like what he presents, it's not even news. It's like infotainment, and
Right?
it's like DNC sponsored infotainment,
Yes.
and it's it's garbage. It's garbage. It's
What's
propaganda.
sad is that it
And
didn't used to always be that way.
yeah,
No.
Right? We've actually been able to watch, because he's been around for, in the indie media space. He's one of the longest tenured, right? Young Turks was just literally a nothing bullshit
I
ass
mean, listen, he kind of
YouTube channel
revolutionized
back in the day.
online news. I mean, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'll give him
mean, look,
that.
I mean, he did revolutionize the indie left
Online
media
space.
space. Yeah.
Yeah.
see, I won't give him that credit, but y'all can.
Look, as far as
And
I'll give them credit
They
in
were
his
kind of the
early days. I
first.
mean, they were one of the biggest at first, right? I mean, I'm not saying they were the only ones,
Yeah,
but they helped blow it up. Now, that being said, uh,
It's trash now.
it's always been trash. But I'll give him this credit. It was easy to sound it was easy to sound progressive during the W. Bush years, right?
oh
Hmm.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, anybody could make a joke
right.
about Junior.
And that's where he got his start, right?
Mm,
In the late W. Bush years, going into the Obama years. So yeah, it was easy to go, but he was a nobody back then, right? It was easy to talk back then when nobody's fucking paying you any attention.
right.
Yeah.
Whenever you've got all the eyeballs on you because you did blow the space up, right? You are looked at as far as you're so big now that it's hard to even look at you as independent media, right? But people still kind of have that, for some reason they still have that kind of veil. Well, it doesn't help that they call themselves independent media. But looking at their production and looking at their rhetoric, they seem like they could just be they're Newsmax for
Yeah.
liberals.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're Newsmax for liberals.
Well, that's the problem. And I think that that's what a lot of people need to really start paying attention to more is that once a content creator or an outlet starts to get a little big, and I argue with people, it's the same thing for politicians. People get mad at me because I focus on Democrats and progressives, and I don't talk about Republicans. That's who we have to focus on, the people who claim to be on our side, because they're going to be facing immense pressure from the establishment to move to the middle. That's just how the animal works. Like that's how this goes. So those are the people we have to hold the most accountable. I know who Republicans are. They're pieces of
Right.
shit. They don't agree with anything that I believe in. They're not going to be moved to my position on many issues. And if there are some like libertarian style Republicans who are anti-war, I'll work with them on that. But it's the progressives that you have to hold accountable because they're the ones who could potentially be on your side. But the minute they enter office, and this is just for people who still believe in electoral politics at the national level, at the federal level, because I do not. But if you do, and you like that's your game plan, then you need to be relentlessly skeptical and critical of people who claim to be on your team because they are being pushed every minute of every day to move to the middle or to move to
Mhm.
the right. And if you don't keep equal pressure on them from the left, that's it. And you're seeing it right now. It's happening right now in real life, in real time. The squad has been co-opted right in front of your eyes. Whether or not they were ever legitimate, like honest actors to begin with, is another debate. I think for each of them, it's probably different.
Right.
But I mean, that's how it works. Like these people out here who run their mouths about Republicans constantly and think they're holding politicians accountable, you're doing it wrong.
Right.
you know?
And that's the thing that adds to your point though, is that when people ask you why you don't focus on Republicans as if that's what you're supposed to just focus on, right? Um, I would say, well, that's because 99% of all media does nothing but solely report on Republicans. If
Yeah.
you want to know what's going on with Republicans, Um, there are literally thousands of sites that will tell you everything you need to know about what's happening with Republicans. They'll tell you so much shit that they'll have to make some of it up just to fill their pages, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we saw for the last 4 years. That's what we've seen, literally. I mean, in the days like since in my lifetime is the epidemic of fake news. This is not an aberration on the Trump years, where just because the term has entered the lexicon in popular culture, fake news. Oh hell, I mean, it's been going on since since
Forever.
Mockingbird, right? I
Fake,
mean, that's
fake
what
news. Fake news
is the
is
real news. The
essentially
real news.
a euphemism for propaganda.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it is. I mean, it's
Yeah.
falsified. We spent 40. Look, I saw some liberal yuck mouth right on Twitter. Who was it? Some it doesn't matter, right? David Frum or
Ugh.
Oh
whoever.
God, from the
He was
Atlantic.
he was whining about, oh my God, this who was it? Lindsey Graham went and say that uh, the Biden was the elected legitimately or some shit. This is crazy. I can't believe it. I can't believe he would say that he wasn't elected legitimately. And I'm just like, didn't you guys literally just spend 4 years publicly questioning the legitimacy of the former president every fucking I'm pretty sure that we had an entire 3 year investigation by a special counsel and a 400 and some odd fucking page book slash report written about the
Yeah,
motherfucker because you insisted so
about 30,
much that
$35
he
million
wasn't
dollars
legitimately
wasted.
elected. Oh my
No,
God.
it had like its own Showtime series or HBO series. Like that's how
Oh,
It's
it was
insane.
it was pathetic when Mueller actually had to get up and
testify. Oh,
sort of explicate his knowledge of this report, and he had no knowledge
Zero.
of it. It was like this
painful.
doddering old square-headed man, like who we're supposed to respect because he
Because
lied us into the Iraq
Because
War.
reasons.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
fuck Robert Mueller. Fuck him
Yes.
yeah,
Fuck
because
all these people. They're all the
he
same. I don't know
sat in
why.
front of Congress and literally lied
Mm-hmm.
lied us into Iraq because of partly in a lot of parts because of his testimony.
Mm-hmm.
He was FBI director at the time, and what he said at that hearing wasn't the the straw that broke the camel's back, but it was one of probably a handful of straws that wound up breaking a camel's back,
oh
and
yeah.
because
It
of
was
his testimony.
manufacturing consent. It was 100%. That's oh
Netanyahu was one of those straws
And who
too.
was there?
yeah.
Like, oh, I saw somebody the other day uh
Like
saying that,
why
Colin
why
Powell. I saw
no, I
somebody.
was just gonna say, why the hell is I don't think he was prime minister at that point, Netanyahu. I think Sharon, I don't know if he was rotting in his coma yet, but Netanyahu came over and testified before Congress and made his own case for why the US should launch a war on Iraq. And like, what the fuck is that? Why are we having people from uh, so-called foreign countries coming
And
over?
didn't he show
So,
up like uninvited, like really unprecedented? Dude just showed up and like went in and started like you know what I mean? Like
I'm
there was
not
some like
sure.
shady business around that. I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah,
Now I'm curious, but yeah, it that I mean,
he just got up there and he was like, "I'm Bibi, and this is why we should attack Iraq because Hamas."
that's a pretty good BB actually.
Yeah,
That's not bad. That's funny. But yeah, these fuckers are all the same. Robert Mueller's the same. All of them. Jim Comey.
oh,
Um,
Mhm.
they're
Jesus.
all the same. Like, I mean, obviously there's like little bits of differences here and there, but none of it. It's any difference is of degree. It's not of kind. You
No,
know what I
yeah, they're
mean?
yes. Then they
They're all
are
the same
scumbags.
psychopathic
and it's
scumbags
Yeah.
and
looking
it's
to enrich
it,
themselves.
but they're also connected to what we've been talking about with regard to the pipeline because they're coming back around again. They're entering the system again, and they are going to they'll sign off on the Colonial Pipeline because I mean, first of all, I think the big problem is that not that many people know about it. Robbie, like you're only one of the only reporters looking into it. And, for them, it's just like another capital gain. And it's easy to sign off on and go along to get along, et cetera, et cetera. So, but these same motherfuckers like James Comey, um, John Brennan,
Oh,
they're all
God.
coming back around again. And
Yeah. Okay. So I just looked at the Netanyahu thing, and that's yes, that's what happened. So John Boehner is the one that kind of invited him to come, and they didn't really let the Obama administration know that that was happening, and so he extended an invitation to him. Netanyahu didn't accept the invitation until the White House had been informed, but that was an invitation that was extended without knowledge of the Obama administration at first. So that was the controversy. I knew there was something like he wasn't invited, or like there was some like weird. Whatever that was. But yeah, so
I think
yeah,
he spoke earlier than that, if I'm not mistaken, during the Bush years, but I'd have to double check that.
yeah, I'm sure he did.
But they had a who's who basically come to Congress and you know make the lie for the war on Iraq that's still going on.
Yeah, then they paraded the same guys to make the lie about Russiagate. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah,
no coincidence that they pull out Bob Mueller every time they need something done, right? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because what else did he do with his fucking career? He put away uh Martha Stewart, right? Congratulations, dude. You're
She's
just
very
fucking
dangerous.
yeah. You're just making this world a hell of a lot fucking safer place, huh? Fucking locking up Martha Stewart and fighting all these imaginary Russian infiltrators. I mean, come on, man. Like they act like they act like Russians are like the fucking scrolls from the Fantastic Four that can just like take over, like shapeshift into whatever to fuck up Americans and just take over the
yeah,
government. It's ridiculous, and and they've shoved that down our throats for years. So I don't want to fucking hear it from Democratic operatives that are, oh my God, I can't believe that they're questioning the legitimacy of the election. I can't believe it. And it's like, whatever, dude. Like I don't have time for that because I've got time because I'm trying to actually like you know break news. I'm trying to like
right.
report on stuff. I don't have, I don't care quite honestly about. I mean, yeah, I look into politicians' money and stuff, but as far as like, oh well, they said this on CNN, I don't fucking care
Oh,
quite
Yeah,
honestly because we've it shouldn't be controversial to say that, or not even controversial, but it shouldn't be like a mind blowing thought. Like this should be something that people just automatically think of when they see a politician on TV with their mouth moving. You should just automatically assume that they're lying and saying
yeah,
whatever the fuck that they need to say to get the reaction that they're looking for. They need to, they want votes, and that's the thing. They're always going to say what they need to say to get votes from the people they need votes for. If they don't need votes from you, they're not going to say shit about you unless, again, it's leading on the news cycle. Like that's another reason I'm not expecting much not much fanfare or much attention on the Colonial Pipeline thing from anybody outside of North Carolina. Like I'm not going to hold my breath for an AOC or a Bernie Sanders or whatever because they can't fundraise off of that.
do you
They
know
can't.
if the,
My
do
vote
you
doesn't matter to AOC, so she's not going to come. Unless CNN and MSNBC are leading with it, and it
and she can make it
becomes,
into a photo op of some
or
kind.
she can get a viral tweet out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely, yeah, hell yeah, she'll be there to fucking jiffy. But
yeah,
if
she can
it's
put on her pantsuit and pretend to be wailing at the
oh
fucking
jeez,
pipeline.
and
Yeah,
that's a whole nother thing too. Like we can just keep adding on to the lists of you know obvious told you so's from
yeah. Well,
from the
I mean,
from the Biden thing, with the checks, right? And then the kids in
Bombing
cages,
Syria and
bombing,
bombing
dropping bombs
Somalia.
in Syria. Oh yeah, well the
yeah,
bombing of Somalia. That's just we could do endless talking about that, because that's truly the our hidden war. right? Or and it's not even really a war, because that would imply that there's two sides equally matched. It's not really. It's our secret slaughter, because we literally have just been decimating that country at will for almost as long as we have Afghanistan. But the only difference is that we talk about Afghanistan and we talk about Iraq. Nobody ever really talks about what the fuck we're doing in Somalia, why we're even still there,
or Mali,
and why we're still ramping up. We're like, even to this day, we're ramping up bombings. Like, it's and for what? I mean, we could get into an entirely different discussion on the foreign policy and why that. I mean, they were right. I mean, anybody who says foreign policy is domestic policy is 100% right. Because I mean, what was it the other day? I saw the news about how I think it was Boeing or Lockheed Martin, whoever makes the F-35 fighter jet. They basically come out. The Department of Defense basically came out and said that the F-35 is a failure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you know how we spent like 1.7.
That's what I tweeted.
What was it?
What was
I
it?
tweeted
out.
1.7 trillion.
The F in F-35 stands for failure.
Yeah. Almost and there was like this. What was it? Oh, fuck. I'm drawing a blank on what it was, but it was like Medicare for all or something. I don't want to misquote
We could get so much for that money, and we shoveled money into a fire. Like, that's what we did. We were just like, whoop. We might as well just burned it instead of spending it on the F-35, and we can't even get $2,000 checks. Like, we can waste that kind of money on a plane that's never going to fly, but we can't give people a $2,000 check in the middle of a pandemic that's economically devastated most of the country.
I bet you it won't be that big of a failure. I bet you we'll sell plenty of them to Israel.
Yeah.
Or some other country out there. I mean, we will. We're going to get them off our hands somehow, and we're going to just arms sales is. I mean, there's no telling how many U.S. soldiers literally have lost their lives from a bullet shot from a gun or from a bomb dropped from a plane.
Yeah, and just friendly
that
reminder,
was made in the good old
Bernie Sanders
USA.
Was a huge supporter of the F-35. Just a friendly reminder.
When I somebody actually literally got like a genuine laugh out of me the other day because there was the whole like, please Bernie, please vote against Neera Tanden, please. And it's kind of like, okay, I mean,
he already a good friend of mine.
He already voted to confirm Blinken and Raytheon's Lloyd Austin and the CIA torture apologist Avril Haines, right? He's already voted to confirm all three of those. And as bad as Neera Tanden is, I mean, is she any worse than the rest of them? So am I supposed to feel any better? And that's what I was like. He still voted to confirm Blinken and Austin, or put in. Somebody was like, well, that's because every time a F-35 is sold, Bernie gets his wings or some shit like that. It didn't make a whole lot of sense, but it just made me think like that's the one thing that's always been his. That was the red flag from Bernie from the beginning. It was. Yeah. Why did he might sound like even back in the 2016 election era, where rhetoric wise, I think we can agree he sounded pretty much night and day from Hillary Clinton at that moment in time.
But he's really not,
except with
really
foreign policy.
Yeah,
when he would start talking about foreign policy, it was like, God damn, am I listening to Joe Biden right now? Like,
and I think that the biggest thing with Bernie Sanders in 2016 was his supporters. It was like this cult, this cult of personality, and they would latch on to like the sound bites and like the picture of him getting arrested, and they like created this mythology around Bernie Sanders and who he was, and it isn't real. And so when you try to bring up the fact that, dude, it has a long and well documented history of being an imperialist, they're like, but he voted against the Iraq War. Okay, he did, but go back and look at his reasonings for it. It may not be exactly what you think. And twice before that, he voted for invasion of Iraq under Bill Clinton. Iraq.
But he did travel to Nicaragua. So he did travel to Nicaragua. So
yeah, but it's like people. I have been consistently amazed at the number of Bernie supporters who don't actually know anything about his record. You know?
Yeah. I mean, you tell them that they whenever you tell them that he voted to area bomb Kosovo, they love that.
Yeah.
Because that's
I
pretty
usually
much
get
exactly
blocked.
what we did in Vietnam. And we just like indiscriminate killing.
I mean, they don't even. Most of those people don't even know where Kosovo is. Like they've never. You tell them. You just say like the Balkans, like the region, and they have no fucking idea what you're talking about.
Well, that's because a lot of people. Well, I mean, the so-called historians or the the talking heads that have been on like the James Carvilles of the world, right? And just the TV talkers that have been on TV for they just like to admit that like that never happened, right? Because that was Clinton's war, right? That was Clinton's war. And they like to gloss over that, and of course the younger people have never been.
The summer of
they were never
99.
taught about. They were never taught about that about what happened in Bosnia, and so it's not really their fault that that's kind of just been that whole little skirmish was kind of like omitted from history, which is interesting because I remember I was like 11 years old at the time, 10 years old at the time, and I remember it being very, very much a story, very present in the media. I mean, we were hearing about the ethnic cleansing is that was the first time I had ever heard that phrase used. I didn't even know what the fuck it was until someone was like, no, they're killing everybody of a certain, and I was like, oh, okay, that's fucking wild, right? And like I'm 10 years old, I don't really understand what's happening, right?
What's also interesting though is it's like what happened then was so similar to what we see happening now or being reported from Hong Kong, for example.
Right.
Like when the narrative started to break, I had a subscription, like a free subscription to Time magazine because I was like studying for the SATs at that point, and that was like the bonus prize for signing up for like the Princeton Review.
Nice.
But I remember, for weeks in the summer, there would be stories about, what was happening vis-a-vis Kosovo. And it was always presented as, like skinhead Serbs just like destroying, ethnic Albanians, right? And which did happen, but also what NATO did to the Serbs, like if you research what happened at the Drina Bridge strike, it's just horrendous, and it kind of set the precedent for what we see today, like these double tap strikes. They hit the bridge, and then there were little girls going, running out to try to help people, and they came back and hit the bridge again and killed these little girls. And it's what we see today, but it's more, I don't know, it's like, I wouldn't say it's more difficult to ascertain the narrative, but it's like the same kind of thing. It's like this manufacturing of a narrative of like what's happening in Hong Kong, for example, as I said earlier.
Yeah, I'm telling you, that is the biggest threat, is narrative control. That's we can't. That is like the greatest contention we're gonna have, because they have they figured out how to completely propagandize everybody, and it's very effective. And
I think one of the most effective things that they've really figured out how to do is not necessarily just propagandize, but discredit the ones that aren't buying into the bullshit. Because so Twitter is the best example of this, right? They're gonna pull the plug on the post story, right? Then flash forward, they start, and obviously they ban Donald Trump and a bunch of other conservative, and and then YouTube starts getting in on the action a little bit. They start you know, it was the most like who could not have seen this coming? Like it was the most obvious thing in the world to see all of the lefty, the so-called lefty independent media guys, like, oh, sucks for him for getting deplatformed or cheering on Alex Jones getting deplatformed a couple, back in the day, and then flash forwards and like, oh well, Donald Trump shouldn't be on Twitter inciting violence and blah blah blah, and then like a week later, literally
Okay,
crying
can
fucking real
can we
tears about their channel getting demonetized by
can we
YouTube.
can we clarify that though, because that keeps floating around that
What's up?
he blatantly incited violence on Twitter, and
Wow.
I haven't seen
The
any
two
evidence of
tweets that
that.
they provided, there's no inciting of violence in those
Yeah,
two tweets
Well,
that they said were the
I know
cause of him
people.
being
I know people hate
deplatformed.
Trump, and I know he might have made insinuations, but I didn't see anything on there that was a direct call
Well, here's my
to action.
thing. They deplatformed the president of the United States. That is,
massive. That's a
yeah,
massive thing.
that's
It doesn't sound like it was
scary.
funny as a troll move, but I mean, like that's what pop culture sees things like that now. They don't see the significance of the president being banned from the was it the largest social media platform, or is that still Facebook, or whatever? But still, I
He's
mean,
been
you
banned from pretty much everything.
yeah, that's right. You got banned from Pinterest, man. Like, what
Yeah,
the fuck? What did you
yeah.
do on
I
Pinterest?
think he got banned from like or not HGTV, but what's the Home Shopping Network, HSN or
Oh,
whatever, or QVC or something.
yeah,
What
and
the fuck, dude?
that's where I bought my Trump steaks from. But I mean, to be honest, it's like in the demonetization, the censorship wave. Of course, on top of all the shit that Twitter was doing, it's not just the propagandizing. It's like, and even we saw this, and I have some issues sometimes with Gray Zone, but that's a great report that they just came out with, I believe. And you know they with the with that implicates Bellingcat and everything, and just kind of just a large network.
Right.
But eh, because I think Max Blumenthal is a great reporter. But
Yeah,
also there.
he's a great dude too. Like he's the reason why Misty and I have this show together. Like he recommended that we team up. So
It's awesome.
um
Yeah.
and like I haven't met him in person, but we've texted and emailed, and he's always been very encouraging. And but
Well,
yeah, like no
but
outlets, no outlets
Twitter's.
perfect. Like
No, of course
Yeah.
not. And it's look, I don't have any bad things to say about Blumenthal.
right.
I've never actually had any personal interactions with him, but I've never had any interaction with him at all. I follow him, he follows me on
Mhm.
Twitter. That's about it. So I'm not, I wouldn't never say anything about that. But be that as it may, the uh, Twitter slapping that warning on their article saying that
Mhm.
this article may contain materials that were obtained by hacking.
Yeah.
That's not a necessary thing to put on a fucking article. I'm sorry, that's not it.
It's
Whether
censorship. It's
regardless,
self-censorship.
yes,
That was
because what you're
so
trying to do
bizarre.
is you're discrediting the work, or at least you're
Yeah,
basically trying to
trying to.
discredit the because nowhere else in that statement they should, if they're going to put that, they need to continue it and make it longer and say uh even if these materials were obtained by hacking, it has zero to do with the legitimacy of the information that
In
is
fact, it
contained in the
Mhm.
actually
article.
makes the information more reliable because you have source documentation of
Well,
the thing that you're claiming.
and
So,
even
like, it's
if
like I tweeted it out the other day. I think Jimmy Dore had it on his show, actually. Somebody sent me a screenshot. I haven't watched it, but I tweeted it out the other day. Maybe I should thank Twitter for these ridiculous warnings because it helps me prioritize which articles I read. If it says may contain
absolutely,
hacked materials, it moves to the top of the list. Okay, excellent. Let's
Right.
read that one.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, hacked materials, that's my jam. Bring that shit on. I want to see that.
Yeah, that's where the juice is. That's where the juice
Yeah,
is.
yes. I
And
want
but
source documentation. 100% of
exactly.
the time. I would love that. I mean, Julian Assange says it all the time. Journalism should
Yep.
be like a science. I 100% believe in that. I
That is
don't care about some pundit's opinion or some, panel of talking heads deciding what they think about a situation. I want the hard, cold facts, and then I'll make up my own damn mind. That's what I want. You know.
and Julian Assange is a major reason why I did. He's a huge inspiration as far as like me wanting to be a journalist. I looked at WikiLeaks and I was like, damn, I want to do this.
Mm.
Right? Like, I want to get these. I want to get my hands on some of these documents. Like I did, at the time, I wasn't thinking about getting chased halfway around the world,
Yeah.
just for doing what he did. I was
Yeah.
just thinking like just having the fucking juice like that, and just having these documents, and just like that's a service, right? Like I would never hope to be like as large, as huge, as and influential as he is, right? But it is an inspiring thing to see, just rebel journalism. Like I'm not CNN, I'm not anything. I am my own dude. I fucking get people come to me. I have with these documents that nobody else has. I'm going to release them. I'm going to drop them in their entirety. And we're going to do it the right way. We're not going to be like the Post and call up the CIA and make sure it's cool to publish this. No, we're just going to
Yeah.
publish this.
Or
We're just going to,
The New York Times.
yeah,
They do the
we're
same
just going to
thing.
publish it. Exactly. They all do the same
They
thing.
all do it.
Access
Mhm.
journalism is a poison on what we do.
Yeah.
WikiLeaks 100% revealed that when they were showing that journalists from the New York Times would send articles to the Hillary Clinton campaign for approval
Absolutely.
before they would publish
One
it.
of the
That's
most
disgusting.
Absolutely, and they should have been ran out of the profession.
Yes.
But they weren't. They weren't even punished for it. Because like you said, narrative control. The media immediately was like, "Hey, these emails are hacked," and like as if that alone is supposed to throw shade on their legitimacy, as in, oh well, they were hacked, so they could be manipulated. It's all speculation. We don't even know if the documents in the Gray Zone article were obtained by hacking. Twitter is literally putting a blanket speculative
I,
tag
I,
on everybody's on that story, because there's no proof to know that these were obtained by hacking. There is proof that they are leaks. We don't
Mhm.
know
I,
how
I
they
don't.
were obtained.
I don't.
So you can say these are leaked materials, but then again, so is 98% of all journalism is
Mhm.
Right.
derived from leaked materials. I do a lot of my journalism is off of most of the time uh, public information. You just got to know where to look for it and know how to interpret it.
Right.
But you know, most of the big stories that we've ever seen came from leaks of some form, or either a leak from somebody individually within the White House or within a government agency blowing a whistle or saying something anonymously, or by obtaining documents from said sources in one of these agencies, and redacting them as you see fit as the editor of your publication, and releasing them that way. And like we just said, I mean, some publications let the CIA edit for them, and
Yeah.
that's a crime against journalism. But you know
That's a crime against humanity. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
because I mean look, I don't want I'm of the opinion like this, and I sometimes have to think about this too, like, I mean, but with the receipts thing, like I have to have them. Like you said, Missy, like the documents. We got to have the documents. What's the
Mhm.
fucking point of reporting on something, saying, "Hey, I saw this piece of paper that said this," right? Um, Now, if I had a blue check mark next to my name, I might be able to get away with that and just be able to spout off whatever fucking nonsense that I want and just say that that's the fact. But the fact is, somebody will eventually prove me wrong. But the idea is that reporting should be not just, am I telling you that this piece of paper says something. I should be able to show you that piece of paper uh, to prove it. If you
Mhm.
like, hey, and that's why that's why I don't like,
And
and I
show
hardly ever
the
do.
veracity of it.
Right, but that's why I don't like doing and hardly ever do opinion pieces.
Right.
When I write, I just don't like. I save my opinions for shows and for interviews and Twitter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I feel like journalism, when I'm writing an article, that article needs to be filled with fact, uh, and it needs to be filled with receipts to back up that fact.
Mhm.
And so often nowadays, it's not about that anymore. It's about just what's the most popular thing that we can, it's honestly, it's a giant ass fucking fundraiser drive
Mhm.
now. And and it's sad, because what Assange taught us, or should have taught us, is that access journalism gets you nothing but propaganda, because they're only going to tell you what the ones that they have access to want them to tell you. Whereas you cannot have access journalism and adversarial journalism at the same time from the
Exactly.
same place. It doesn't
Exactly.
work that way, because
Exactly.
if you're adversarial, you will lose your access.
Yeah.
If you want to gain access, you cannot be adversarial. I'm sorry. And anybody that, whenever people try to spin you that bullshit, it's just, remember, it's not the way it works. I mean, there may be a couple of journalists, even at the big boys like the Times, and Politico, that are genuinely good people. Like, I hate to paint with such a broad brush, because I'm sure that even at the big publications, there are some journalists that, are really in it for the right reasons. But
Hmm.
they're handcuffing themselves because, like, we don't need them anymore. We don't need CNN anymore. We don't need Politico. We don't need
Right.
the Young Turks even. Uh, we can do this on our own. The reason we still have those institution news outlets is because of the access. But that's
Well, and
also
because
why.
that's the narrative they want to sell, and that's why they're attacking independent journalism so hard right now, because they want
Yes.
to force people to give up. We were talking about this on the vigil earlier. Like all of the demonetization and stuff is like it's kind of like a economic sanctions type thing.
Hmm.
That's how they're going to force people out of independent media, because if you can't if like if you get 25% of your income once you build up your show, like just taken away overnight, that's going to force you into a pretty tricky situation. And a lot of people will have to quit because they can't afford to do their shows anymore, because I mean, this is what they did to Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. One of the first things they did was ban them from financial and fundraising mechanisms and apps and
Hmm.
services.
Hmm.
All of them. PayPal ditched them, all of them. And that's one of the first attacks that they made against Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, was the financial aspect of it. They tried to take all of their funding away, and that's what they're doing to independent media right now. They're doing it again. They know that I mean, you had the guy a few weeks ago on CNN literally saying that, independent media gets more views than CNN, and, we got to
This is
bring people
all
back into the mainstream, and we can't have people talking about all this crazy conspiracy stuff. And they genuinely do not want you to have access to any information outside the established narrative at all. None.
hmm
They want to force feed you everything, and that's it. And these people are not good people. They're psychopaths. They're warmongers. They're criminals. I don't want them having 100% control over all of our information and our right to know. I mean, they already have a lot of control. And like we're this close to like just handing over the rest of it. Like it's not
I,
good.
I wonder. I think you're absolutely right. I just wonder how much for them it's ideological and how much it's careerist. Because
Oh, most of it are
I
just
don't think it's very much ideological. I think it's
no.
more to do with careerism and um, you know, the posh paycheck that comes along with.
Well, in a capitalist society, once you start living a certain lifestyle, then you have to maintain that lifestyle, and then you have a
Well,
family to take care of, and then you have schools to pay for, and prom dresses to buy, and you have a house and a mortgage and cars, and you got to take your pets to the vet, and it's
but
all of a sudden,
but they're also
control.
fucking divas now. I mean,
Yeah.
Mm,
think about it. I mean, before then, it was like you didn't really know the newscaster wasn't. I mean, okay, so people might have known like who Peter Jennings was, Dan Rather, whatever, right? And you
Gunga
might,
Dan.
yeah, but the thing is that okay, let's push Dan Rather to the side because he was always very much full of himself, and
Yeah.
um, Jim Acosta reminds me of Dan Rather, like he is like, and I'm not, and that is not a compliment. For some
No.
reason, if this ever
I
came
mean,
across
Dan Rather
Acosta's
basically
desk.
did propaganda for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. So
Yeah, I mean, Dan Rather's claim to fame was, the reporting that he took credit for during Watergate. Uh,
uh,
and he didn't do that reporting. He just got famous off of talking about it and asking the president questions about it.
yeah,
Because, he didn't really do shit. I mean, Bernstein and the other dude did a lot of
Or
that,
Woodward.
Woodward, thank you.
Yeah,
But
but there's actually a really good sorry to cut in, but there's like
no,
a
you're
really
good.
good modern day example of that, and it's the book that Luke Harding wrote about like he wasn't even there like when Glenn Greenwald and I think Ewan something, I forget his name, but they were like Glenn was at the Guardian at the time and basically meeting. They were in Snowden's hotel room in China. Uh, you know, like if you've seen Citizen 4, you know what I'm talking about. Um, but it's like, I mean, I'm trying to think of the right comparison. I can't quite make it
It's
right.
like stolen valor, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's basically what I was gonna say. And Luke Harding, like he wasn't there. And actually, if you look it up, if you Google Julian Assange, Newsweek, Harding, Julian Assange wrote this like amazingly written and just devastating review of Luke Harding's piece of shit book, and then you have other people who've, you know, like if you go to Barnes and Noble and look at like the current affairs section, the amount of people who have written books and are like making money off of those books just based on their just fatuous criticisms of Trump, like it's insane, you
yeah, that's
know?
what, and that's what I
Like
was getting at is that
Michael Isikoff is another one.
Seth Abramson.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
the whole industry now. Hating Trump is the whole industry at this
Right.
point. And
yeah.
And
Luke
that's what I
Harding
was
is
gonna
just
say is that,
Luke Harding is somebody.
oh Luke, shit.
No, I think because we were talking earlier about like, is it some of it careerism or whatever? I don't think it's necessarily careerism for him. I think he is the one that I have no question in my mind. He is a nefarious actor. He knows what he's doing. He knows that he is a propagandist for power. I think he's fully aware of that, and he plays that game very, and not even very well, but he's okay with looking like a fool for power, and he's willing to do that. You know what I mean?
Oh
So.
yeah.
It's
I
also
mean,
just
Trump made
unbearable to look at and
celebrities.
listen to as well.
Mhm.
Trump made celebrities out of the news media.
Hmm.
I mean, nobody know who the fuck Don Lemon was, or before Donald Trump came along. I mean, that's just be for real. I
Or
mean,
Jim Acosta.
yeah, he
Yeah.
exact or Jim Acosta for that matter. And thank you. Like everybody knew who Wolf Blitzer was, and everybody knew who Anderson Cooper was when it came to CNN
Wolf Blitzer's a
prior to
Zionist, by the
Trump.
way.
But you know, he everybody's known who they were because they've been around. They've actually like they've been with the network, but nobody knew who fuck Don Lemon was. Nobody cared who Chris Cuomo was. Uh, they might have, even if you might recognize his face, but you just didn't give a shit who he was until the Trump years. Nobody gave a shit about Rachel Maddow until 2016. Nobody gave a shit about really Lawrence O'Donnell until
Yeah.
2016, and then they quickly remembered why.
Brian Williams.
Because and by the way, like Lawrence O'Donnell, for all of his posturing, you know, if you've ever seen The West Wing and thought, man, this is some really centrist
Mm.
propaganda bullshit, that's because Lawrence O'Donnell fucking helped write that show.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's so
Huh.
whenever I can't take him seriously just because of that. He could have
Yeah.
never, his opinion now. It's like, dude, no, I don't want to hear it, because you basically made one of the most acclaimed pieces of Democrat propaganda to ever exist. So fuck you for that, honestly.
Yeah.
And I mean, because look, I mean, but with Trump being gone, the media is going to be, or mainstream media is going to be at a really tough spot. So it's
Yep.
like, okay, now what do? You try to keep Trump in the spotlight for as long as possible. Let's talk about the second impeachment. Let's
Hmm.
let's still watch him like a hawk, so we don't have to talk about the guy that we pushed on you for 4 years. And eventually they're going to have to. And when they do, they're going to make them, they're going to have to either criticize Joe Biden or carry his water.
They're going to carry
And
his
Well,
water.
they're already carrying
but
his water.
but
I mean,
here's the thing: their ratings are, and that's what I'm saying. Like, but look, this is a business that we're talking about here that's predicated off of ratings, right?
Mhm.
Predicated off of money, predicated off of advertising revenue. Now they can always get Raytheon and Boeing because they'll advertise on there because they'll advertise on anybody. They don't care because both Republicans and Democrats love the war machine. But with how uber woke everything is now, all right, especially when it comes to Democratic side of things and CNN, especially MSNBC messaging. I just think about this. So ratings are going to eventually bottom out if they aren't already, which I'm probably
Mhm.
sure they're on their way down because Trump is no longer president. They don't
Yeah.
want to sensationalize Biden's presidency, right? Because if they do that, they're going to lose even more viewers because the people that are still clinging on to MSNBC and CNN are almost definitely, Democratic Party loyalists. I don't know any real, conservative leaning person or any like actual conservative person that is getting their news from a CNN.
Mhm.
I know I'm painting with a big brush there too. Uh, and I might be, but generally speaking, uh, I just don't see CNN or MSNBC getting too much of the conservative news viewership market.
Yeah.
And so
You're
eventually
you're you're right. I
they're
can
gonna
speak.
have to cover the Biden. They're either gonna have to cover the Biden administration critically,
Mhm.
right, or continue to to keep sinking.
well,
And
here's what I think
I
is going
hope
to
that's
happen.
what
They're going
happens.
to hold on. They're going to white knuckle for 2 years, and they're going to invent new enemies like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Manchin and
Yep.
other people that they can be mad at and throw tantrums about from occasion. And they're gonna white knuckle it for 2 years, and then it'll be time for the midterms, and then it'll be all about scaremongering about you got to
Boogeyman.
vote blue no matter who, and you got to make sure we maintain the House and the Senate, and blah 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 blah. And then after that, depending on how the midterms go, which I predict the Democrats are going to get wiped out, once the Democrats are wiped out, then they can go back to fear mongering about how Republicans are terrible and we have to get ready for 2024 and we have to regroup because we just lost the midterms. And,
Mm.
and then it'll be all about campaigning. And
Oh yeah.
that's the cycle. That's how it always
Yep, that
goes.
is the cycle.
And
And
it's
you're
either
right. I
Fox
think you're
News is
right.
in that position or CNN and MSNBC are in that position. They take turns. There's a Republican in office, then and then MSNBC and CNN do okay. If there's a Democrat in office, then Fox News does okay for a while, and they just kind of play back and forth, and they just do their little roller coaster of who's in a good shape and who has to kind of white knuckle it for a couple years, and that's just the cycle of the news media, and
Yeah,
it
and
Yeah.
sucks.
that's
And I
and
think
it
it,
does
it's
suck.
it's it's important to point out too that MSNBC, CNN, all these uh, MSM corporate outlets, they are, uh, they're sort of like part of the fulcrum of American capitalism, and they're money making machines first and foremost. And whether they can make money presenting truthful information or just sensational fabricated information, that's what they'll do.
Mhm.
And I think that's how they solely exist now.
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe once in a while something will sneak through, but uh, again, it goes back to capitalism. Just like the pipeline we were talking about earlier. It's cheaper for the pipeline maintenance workers to inspect, several hundred miles instead of the whole pipeline, and like report back that everything's fine, and when something happens, if there's a spill, there's a leak, it's not as expensive as you know like actually doing due diligence. So it's like a risk reward thing. I mean, risk reward is like the essence of capitalism, and
Yeah.
that's why it's so shitty.
Yeah.
um
I
but
mean, And Misty's right. I mean, it, they're gonna have to invent a boogeyman, right? Because because they're either, and that's what we're saying, they're either gonna have to criticize Biden, which they won't, because look, there is a space here that could, like, in an altruistic world, right? There could be like there's an opportunity for one of these fucking propaganda outlets in a decent society. There's an opportunity here to just come out and say, hey, we're going to do this right. We're going to they only want to criticize the right and they only want to criticize the left. We're going to come out here and actually do it right. And you know how refreshing that would be, and like
Oh,
even in a capitalist society, you could still be like, you know what? That's going to sell tickets, right?
you
Uh
know what, dude? People are
and
thirsty for that.
exactly. And that's why I'm glad that fucking MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, all of them are too busy sniffing their own asses, because that opens up, it leaves the void open for us to
Yeah.
actually get in there and do the work. And even if we're not going to get all the attention or all the money or all the whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we prove every time that we get on here, or every time we send out a tweet, that somebody reads and somebody learns from. Like, journalism isn't some little closed off community. Like,
Uh,
it is open for everyone, and anybody can become one. Um,
Right.
you just have to be honest with the people that you're sharing your information with, and they have to be able to trust you in return. It's like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, there are I'm sure, lots of great, honest journalists that work at the New York Times and that work at the like Politico.
Hmm.
Um, but we paint with such a broad brush, deservedly so. It's not like these companies didn't spend, like, the entire last 40 or 50 years earning their reputations. But regardless of that, we see, oh damn, you work for the New York Times. Sorry, man, I can't believe a fucking word you say.
Yeah.
And that may not necessarily always be fair. But that's why those people need to get the fuck out of the New York Times, and they need to get the fuck out of Politico and the Daily Beast, and realize that you don't need them solely because of they just have the access. Like, there is a
Right.
market for honest, objective journalism. Uh,
Yeah.
that's what people really want. I mean, I'm sure if you did the Family Feud survey, right, surveyed 100 people, that you'd probably get 99 that would say that they would want to watch a news outlet like that, which is why I'm grateful that I've been given the opportunity that I've been given by Nico, and so, hell, I think we're late for that call, but they I'm glad when I'm grateful that I have colleagues such as you guys, and Steve, and Fiorella and Pasta. We formed like a little community amongst all, like, our little outcast group of misfit independent media types. uh
We're
it,
fascists.
and it
yeah.
works, but it works. But look, I'm not going to take any kind of criticism from, like, I'm not, look, you can come at me if you want, as far as, like, somebody
Yeah.
wants to question my reporting. Like, I don't
I
care,
don't give a
because I
shit.
got
I don't give a
something
shit.
for you no matter what. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm also probably not even going to fucking regard you if you're somebody that has never contributed anything to the, like, meaningful to the discourse. And I'm not sitting here
Exactly.
saying that you've had to, like, break a story. That's not what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Because
No,
you can
but if you
contribute to the
spend,
conversation,
yeah.
without having to actually, like, break, be a journalist, whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna go like that far. That's crazy.
Well, I
But
mean,
if your only contribution is talking shit about other people that have
Activist
made
journalist,
contributions,
yeah.
then shut the fuck up, dude. I don't
yeah.
really value
Well,
your opinion, and I don't want to fucking hear it.
that's the
So
that's the problem, is that, like, so many, if not all of these fucking dildos come at you with, like, ad hominem attacks. It's not about the facts you're presenting.
oh,
It's
you
not
work with
about
Nico, man. Well, fuck. Nico talked to Jack Posobiec that one time.
Somebody sent me a screen post today where they said that I am a genocide denier and I support or I lift up white supremacy and something else. And I'm like, none of these things are true. You're just saying them. And
You're a
like,
genocide denier. Is that
I'll
because you
tell you
don't want
what,
to
though, like,
assassinate Assad?
yeah, like please just stop sending me screenshots, you guys. I do not
Yeah,
care. These people don't mean
honestly.
anything to me. That's why I choose to ignore them for the most part.
Yeah.
The only time I will really ever address them, sometimes I'll get pulled in just because I think some of the trolls are kind of funny to fuck with sometimes.
Yeah, yeah.
But the only time I ever get pulled into like really like
It's funny to piss
responding is if
people
they
off
come at my
sometimes.
friends. And
Yeah,
if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
going to come at my friends and try to
Mm.
say that, what my friends are doing isn't important or that they're grifters or that they're not real activists or that I am going to have a problem with that. We're going to have a
I'm
problem.
I'm
Yeah.
grifting
Well,
so hard that I can't even like you don't understand how much money I'm making on this grift right now. Like I'm
Dude.
approaching Lincoln Project uh status of fucking grift.
Okay,
You
so
know,
there's a girl on Twitter right now who is trying to claim that Action for Assange is nothing but like a grifter network, and we're just in it to
oh
make money
my
off of Julian's
god.
name.
oh,
Our channel
is that
has
Georgie?
never been monetized. We
Is
have
that
never made a
Georgie
single
from
dollar.
Australia?
What?
Is that
Yes,
Georgie
fuck
from
her. Please
Australia?
don't use her name. Don't give her the notoriety. Like it's just not. I just don't even
Whatever.
want her.
She can fuck
Bleep
off.
But
that shit out and say
yeah,
fuck
but
it.
seriously, like you don't get to say that because we've been doing this show for almost 2 years. We've never made a dollar from it. We do it for free.
Right.
We have to do lots of research. We have amazing guests on. Well, all of us have spent money out of pocket to perform actions or to whatever it is. I've spent thousands of dollars out of pocket for Julian Assange.
Mhm.
So if I'm grifting, I think I'm doing it wrong because I'm pretty sure that's the
Hell
opposite of
yeah.
grifting.
Yeah,
So fuck you. Go
yeah,
fuck yourself.
Fuck you. Hell
Ugh.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm so
No,
sick of it. I honestly am. I'm so sick of it.
when you sent me that, I was like, I don't know. I had my suspicions about such and such person, and when you sent me that, it was kind of like confirmation. Like this person's a fucking. I don't know what the fuck their deal is, but they're
To
not.
cause division, to cause drama. That's what I
Yeah,
To
yeah,
discredit the actual journalists and the activists as well that are doing the work.
100.
That's their point. Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Look,
yeah.
guys, I hate to run on you, but I do
No,
gotta
yeah, I
go.
need to go too.
No,
I can already hear my kids up there asking like where I'm at.
all good, man. Are you wearing a
Let
toy
everybody
machine
know where
shirt?
you can
Yeah.
find you. Yeah, give us all your
Fuck
links
yeah.
and Twitters.
Um, so you can find me at Roblet of Fire on Twitter. You can also find me at Roblet of Fire, Roblet of Fire, on rockfin.com. That's where I primarily post all of my articles and all of my other work. And other than that, I don't really use other social media outside of Twitter. So, but I do break a lot of news over there and update my stories before I write articles. So if you want to keep up to date with everything I'm covering, which is everything from the Colonial Pipeline spill to the Biden transition, well, not transition at this point, the incoming administration, and the finances and all that, you can check me out there. And once again, like I like to ask, if you got 5-10 minutes of free time, your viewers, and they need something to do and want to kill some time, please, I encourage everybody to just look up some reading material or some informational material on autism, specifically about its effect on children, so we can help build a more educated and inclusive world for our neurodiverse brothers and sisters out there.
Hell
But
yeah.
other than that, that's it for me tonight, guys. And I appreciate you
Cool.
having me on again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you
Thanks,
so
Robbie.
much
We appreciate you.
for
Thank you,
coming
guys.
on.